We're starting with frost. I sent the videos for the missed class on Wednesday to cover Ode on a Grecian Urn and Ode to the West Wind. So starting with Robert Frost, page 711 in the 11th edition, 889 in the 10th edition. We're going to do 3 poems by Frost. What I want to try to do today is 3 poems by Frost, Pied Beauty, to one who's been Long and City Pent by Keats, and then jump to the other poem by Keats on the syllabus, which is assigned for Wednesday of next week, and then, if we have time, come back and very, very quickly do Scarborough Fair. I have been one acquainted with the night. I have walked out in rain and back in rain. I have outwalked the furthest city light. I have looked down the saddest city lane. I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street, but not to call me back or say goodbye. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. I have been one acquainted with the night. So the big question about this poem is, what's the night? I've been one acquainted with the night. Walked out in rain and back in rain. So we move from just night to walking. I walked out in rain and I've walked back in rain. I've started when it's raining and I've come back while it's still raining. It doesn't tell anything about how long the walk is. You can walk out the front door and go, oh, it's raining. Walk back in. I have outwalked the furthest city light. Now that's a little different. Furthest city light probably implies that, or let me put it this way, it might imply that the speaker lives near the edge of town and has walked out past the last street light. So, maybe a mile. Could be it's a small village and there's like only 2 street lights, or he could live in his large city and he's gone for long walks to outside the city limits and back. I have looked down the saddest city lane. How can a city lane be sad? It's anthropomorphizing a road. It's like a road can be happy. How can a road, a lane, be sad or happy?
Maybe if it's in disrepair, like cracks.
Disrepair? What else?
It leads to nothing or something?
It leads to nothing. Okay. When does he do his walking?
At night.
At night. What else can indicate sadness? Not for the city street. Say, for us.
Loneliness.
Told my first class. Saw an article yesterday. I haven't read it yet. And it said one of the major problems confronting our world today, not the United States, not Europe, not the world, is the problem of loneliness, according to surveys. That most people, many people, feel loneliness. They feel cut off from others. Even with these things constantly attached, to us. So is the saddest city lane sad because it's empty, unused? I have passed by the watchman on his beat and dropped my eyes, unwilling to explain. We don't use the term watchman anymore. What's the watchman? The cop on his walking beat. Most cops don't have a walking beat anymore. That is an area that they patrol. They're in cars or bicycles in some places. Okay? So he's out there walking. It's nighttime. He sees the cop, and what does he do? Drops his eyes. Today, a cop would look at that as suspicious behavior. Why does he drop his eyes, though? Unwilling to explain. To explain what? What are you doing out here this time of night? Why are you walking around here? Well, a lot of that could depend on where he's walking, right? If he's just walking on some everyday, ordinary city street, but if he's walking down, shopping district where there's a bunch of glass windows with expensive diamonds and jewelry. You know, is this guy casing the joint? Okay. He doesn't want to talk about why he's out walking. Why is he out walking? We're not told. We're never told. I have stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street. Notice no punctuation in that stanza until we get to the end of the third line. Go back to the first stanza for a second. Each line is a simple, short, declarative sentence, and it ends with a period. Boom, boom, boom. Next stanza begins with a simple sentence, but then the next two lines are a sentence. So it gets a little bit larger. Third stanza, you just read on along without any pause until you get to that period. I've stood still and stopped the sound of feet when far away an interrupted cry came over houses from another street. How does he stop the sound of feet?
Stop walking.
He stopped walking. Why does he stop walking?
He hears a cry.
What's meant by a cry? Is it, wah? Is it that kind of cry? A baby? No, it's not. What is it? It's a scream or a yell of some kind. Why does he stop? We don't find out to the beginning of the fourth stanza. When far away, an interrupted cry, so whatever the cry is, something cuts it off. Or the person stops yelling for some reason. And it comes from over houses from another street. So it's at least one street away, possibly 2 streets away. And then we hear stanza 4, but not to call me back or say goodbye. What's that telling us? The call isn't, wait, come back. Telling us what? What's the speaker want to hear?
He wants to come back.
Either one of 2 things. Wait, come back, or goodbye. Not F you, which would have a totally different meaning, right? He stops. Why? Maybe to turn around, but when he doesn't hear either of those 2 things, keeps on walking. So just stopping right there, what does up to this point tell us about this persona, about this speaker?
He's leaving somewhere, but he feels like he should go back.
Possibly. Is there a wrong interpretation? Maybe if you say, well, the voice he hears are little green men, and you have no, nothing in there supports that, but there's some kind of relationship that is what? Strained, broken, damaged. And further still, at an unearthly height, one luminary clock against the sky proclaimed the time was neither wrong nor right. What's the luminary clock? It's pretty simple. The moon. Why is it luminary? It creates light. Okay? It's against the sky, so it's up in the sky at an unearthly height. That is, something I can't reach. Okay? What's Latin for moon? What words do we get that derive from luna? Lunatic, loony, lunacy, which are all what? Terms that indicate something's not right up here. Why? Because you're under the reasoning, you're under the influence of the moon. All right? The moon says what? The time is neither wrong nor right. For what? Walking? Possibly. I have been one acquainted with the night. Okay, so what does that mean? What's the speaker experiencing at the very least? Loneliness? A little bit of alienation, a little bit of isolation. Notice he goes out during the rain and comes back in the rain. He goes out beyond the city lights, that is, into the utter darkness and comes back. What does night confer or connote? All of those things. Obviously darkness, isolation, alienation. What does someone experience if they're feeling isolated and alienated? Obviously loneliness. What else? What do all those things, what may all those things lead to? And you keep that going, so thoughts of suicide. I'm not saying that this poem is indicating that. I am going to say another poem does. Okay? But this is indicating someone who's wrestling with problems. And I'll tell you what I told my first class. I really identify with this poem. Because when I was in my early 20s, at school on Lookout Mountain, when the person who's now my wife and I broke up, and then we later got back together, I would go for these long walks in the middle of the night on Lookout Mountain. 4 or 5 mile walks on Lookout Scenic Highway and stuff. Or go down to the bluff, etc. And I do it if it's raining, if it's foggy, etc., or I go running. Same kind of thing. Why? Because it was dark and there was nobody else around. And nobody would see me. If I was doing that, people are going, what are you doing? Walking 7 miles away from where you live, kind of a thing. Okay? So, go from there to, not going to do Road Not Taken yet. We're going to do Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening first on 881. Find it. One thing about really all poets and all poetry, but this applies more to some poets than it does to others. The poems need to be read aloud. You need to hear the sounds, okay? Frost is one of those more than others. Keats is one that you really need to listen to the sounds. Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. Notice, no punctuation until you get into that 4th line. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds, lost my place. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds, the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Okay? So, we have a speaker on horseback. What's the quote-unquote setting? There's woods. There's a frozen lake. He's between the woods and the frozen lake. It's winter. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. So, the person who owns the woods doesn't live in the woods, and his house is in the village, so we're all alone. We're not going to get caught. Whatever. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods, what's the next phrase? Fill up with snow. It's not to watch his woods in the snow. What does the phrase fill up mean? Literally, first of all, what's it mean? To fill up. How do you fill up the woods with snow? A lot of snow. Okay? To watch his woods fill up with snow. So how long is he going to be there? while, a long time. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Notice what he's doing. He's projecting into the horse's mind. Between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So he says, the horse is wondering, why are we stopping here? What is there not around where they are? A farm or farmhouse. What would the farm and farmhouse probably be able to see at this point, at this time? A light of some kind. Whether it's firelight from inside, if it's a pre-electrical home, okay? Notice, between the woods and frozen lake. He's not in the woods. He's outside the woods looking into them. How far do you see at night into woods? Not very far. Especially when it's snowing, so there's cloud cover, no moon, no stars. You're out in the middle of the dark woods. How much light do you have? Not much. Between the woods and when is it? The darkest evening of the year. Now that just might mean real heavy clouds, and it's dark because of that, or what else? It's often interpreted that that's referring to the longest night of the year, December 21st, beginning of winter. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. Well, the first part, totally easy to understand. The horse shakes. And then the speaker does what for us?
Interprets it.
He interprets it. He's telling us what he thinks the horse means. Okay? Let's get a move on. Time to go. Why are we stopping? Why else might the horse shake its harness bells? Where are the harness bells? Along the neck.
It's cold.
Yes. Why?
It's snowing.
And they're doing what?
Sitting still.
They're just sitting there watching the woods fill up with snow. What is happening on the horse? The snow is piling. And so the horse shakes to scatter the snow off of it. Okay? The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Notice, this isn't a massive blizzard. This isn't howling 50-mile-an-hour winds. This is a light breeze, and those flakes do this. They just gently come down. And how are the flakes described?
Down.
What else do we use downy for? Louder? Feathers? Keep going. What do we use down feathers for? Pillows, blankets, comforters, and probably, when he's writing this, many beds. John Denver had a song very, very famous back in the early 70s, Grandma's Feather Bed, talking about playing on grandmother's feather bed because the mattress was so soft. You jump on it, it just kind of swallows you up. The easy wind and downing flake. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. What does that imply? It's beautiful, right? It's attractive. What does attractive mean? Draws me towards them. What does the speaker want to do?
Walk through the woods.
Does he want to stay right here between the frozen lake and the woods? No, he wants to go into the woods. How deep? They're lovely, dark, and deep. They draw him in. But, what does but tell us?
You can't do that.
I can't. I have promises to keep. What are the promises? Doesn't matter. What is meant by promises? Does it mean literal promises? I promise so and so? Might be. Could be this kind of promise. What else could it be? Everyone exists in relationship with others, whether we think we do or not, or whether we want to or not. I'm pretty much an antisocial person. Just go away. I don't like parties. I don't like get-togethers, etc. Just go away. I know, pretty odd that I choose this kind of way to make my living. But what does that mean? I made a promise, metaphorically, to you when I agreed to teach this class. You made promises to me by enrolling in this class. What were some of those promises? I'll do the work. Okay, my promise is to do the work. The promises are those little parts of every relationship. Okay? I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep and miles to go. Why the repetition? That miles to go before I sleep is telling us two things. That's not why it's repeated, the two things. It's telling us two things. What does the speaker want to do? Sleep. Where does the speaker want to sleep? Right here, right now. I just want to lay down and go to sleep. Why? The woods are lovely, dark and deep. And the snow is like what? It's like a down bed. I could just lay down here and the snow would keep snowing and I would die. Read early 20th century, Call of the Wild. Yeah, Call of the Wild. Jack London. Read Jack London's Call of the Wild. Short story, okay? Actually, no, it's not Call of the Wild. To Build a Fire is the name of the short story. Look it up on YouTube. I'm pretty sure it's there. There's a short TV film done a long time ago, back in the 70s. It's about two guys. They're out hunting in the Yukon or something, or going back to their cabin after doing some prospecting. And I shouldn't be going into this because I don't have time. And one takes the road that they're supposed to take, and the other one goes, I'll be the smart one. I'll take a shortcut. He goes off with his dog, takes a shortcut, gets lost in the snowstorm, falls down a ravine, breaks his leg, falls into the water, gets soaking wet, is able to climb out, and he realizes pretty quickly, I'm going to freeze to death. He looks at his dog stays out of reach because the dog sees the look in his eye, which is, he's going to kill me if he gets close enough to me. Why? Luke Skywalker in whatever the thing is on Ice Planet Hoth. If he kills me, he'll try to wrap himself up in my skin to stay alive. And to build a fire, to give you the ending, the guy experiences death coming to him from his feet up as his body just goes numb. That is what this person would experience. Okay? And miles to go before I sleep. Before I sleep, before I die. What's the miles to go? It's the promises, the obligations, the responsibilities he has to others, whoever those people are and whatever those responsibilities and obligations are. Now go from there to, I think it's page, okay, where is it? 871. The road not taken. You might have read this before in high school. If you've never read this before or never heard the poem before, you've probably heard part of it referred to in our society because it's referred to all the time. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. Let's just stop there. So what's the setting? Person's out for a walk. In a wood. The wood's yellow. And he reads a fork in the road. What's the significance of the yellow wood? Why is it yellow? Why not green? If you go off in the woods today, it's going to look like that. It's going to be green. It's fall. What is fall metaphorically?
Death of trees.
Leading to death. So life, death. Okay. He hits this fork and he does what? He looks down this way and he looks down this way. This way he looks down and the path bends off in the undergrowth. And he does what? He takes the other path. Okay? I took the other just as fair. That is, this part of the path, this part of the path, they look identical. Having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. That is, this one has grass. Wanted wear means it lacked wear. It hadn't been worn down. But the next two lines kind of say, no, that's not the case. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. So they are worn about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves, no step had trodden black. That morning, it's the beginning of what? It's the beginning of the day. That morning, nobody had taken either of those paths. The implication also is that nobody had taken this path. I kept the first, this one that bent in the underbrush. I kept it for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So is this the kind of walk? You start at home, you get in your car, you drive to the trailhead, you park your car, you grab your pack, and you go off, and you do a loop, and you come back, you get back in your car and go back home? No, it's not. So what kind of walk is it? It's life. How do we know? Because knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. He takes this path. So what happens to this one? It no longer exists. Why? You make a choice between what you think are two things, two decisions, and once you make this decision, what happens to this option? Gone. People go, no. You get married, you make a mistake, you get a divorce, you get married again. Does that mean this one is gone? Did this person stop existing? No. It's still there. It still will problem, So he goes off this way, and what happens? Decision, 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 decision. And you can't go back to the beginning. Okay? I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere, ages and ages hence. What is an age? It's a long period of time. Okay? This is ages and it's not just ages hence, it's ages and age, like thousands of years in the future. I'll be telling this with a sigh. Telling it how? Because obviously it's not going to be with this thing, because this is going to be dead and rotted in the ground. Metaphorically, spiritually. Why with a sigh? What's the sigh imply?
Regret.
I think so. Most think that's what he's saying. Here's what he's going to be saying with a sigh. With possibly regret. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by. This is the first time we're told that. Because before he said, they both looked like they'd been worn about the same. I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So it's the sigh because he took the one less traveled and it led to a destination that now makes him sigh? Is he saying, shouldn't have taken the less traveled one? The way this is always portrayed in popular culture is march to the tune of your own drummer. Take the road less traveled. The speaker kind of seems to be implying, danger, there be dragons in this area. You know, they used to have an old maps. Terra incognita, there be dragons here. In other words, don't go here, go this way. All right? Go from there to, what do you have, 940. Pied Beauty, 1054. I'm not going to say hardly anything about this poem. 1054. This is another poem by Gerard Manley Hopkins. Okay? It's a praise poem. He's just praising God. Glory be to God for dappled things. What does dappled mean? Light and dark. So it's got shadows and light. For skies of couple colors, a brinded cow, for rose moles all in stipple, upon trout that swim. Fresh firecoal chestnut falls, finches wings, landscape plotted and pieced, fold, fallow, and plow, and all trades their gear and tackle and trim. All things counter, originals, fair, strange, whatever is fickle, freckled, who knows how, with swift, slow, sweet, sour, a dazzle dim, he fathers forth whose beauty is past change. Praise him. Praise God for what? Okay, but be a little bit more specific. I mean, yes, he is saying for everything. That everything is not what? The same. That everything is full of variety. Except for Peckall, which is just entirely god-awful ugly. Okay, just, you got to say that. This is like walking into hell. People, totally different. Trees, plants, animals, rocks. No two trees are the same. No two snowflakes are the same. No two hail, whatever, kernels, grains are the same, etc. He's like, thank God for, let's use the word and what it really means. Diversity. Real diversity. For variation. Because imagine if the world wasn't. Imagine if we were like in 1984, the novel, not the year, where everybody's dressed in gray. Okay? Pretty bleak. That's all I'm going to say about it. Next one. To one who has been long in city pent. Next page. Okay? Nice little poem by Keats. To one who has been long in city pent, 'tis very sweet to look into the fair and open face of heaven, to breathe a prayer full in the smile of the blue firmament. Who is more happy when, with heart's content, fatigued, he sinks into some pleasant lair of wavy grass and reads a debonair and gentle tale of love and languishment. Returning home at evening with an ear catching the notes of Philomel, an eye watching the sailing cloudlet's bright career, he mourns that day so soon is glided by, e'en like the passage of an angel's tear that falls through the clear ether silent to lie. Okay? Keats lived near, very near, actually his house is on part of it, what's called Hampstead Heath, which is on a hill that overlooks London. It's north of London, so if we were on Hampstead Heath, London would be down there. And Hampstead Heath is this big wild area. It's got a lot of green space, meadow and such, but there's also lots of trees. It used to be a hangout for robbers and thieves and things like that. In Keats's day, London proper what's called the City of London. It's not the metropolis you see today. London was the financial district, right? If you go to London today, you know you're entering what's called the City of London, as opposed to the City of Westminster. They're both part of London, okay? Because go down the Strand, which is this main thoroughfare, and as you get to the City of London, there in the middle, literally, in the middle of the road is a plinth. And on that plinth is a dragon facing outward as you come in from the west. As you keep going through the city and go out through the east, there's another dragon, and it's facing east. So if you're coming in from the east, the dragon's facing you. The dragons are metaphorical guards of the City of London, all right? The City of London and the City of Westminster in Keats's day were known for their pollution. Dickens writes about it all the time. It's the smoke of the coal fires people are burning in their homes as well as in business. All right? So when he says, to one who has been long in city pent, caged, confined, pent up. How? Who lives in the city and works in the city. That's all he's talking about. You spend your days in the city. Oh man, is it nice to look into the fair and open face of heaven. That is, to be able to look up and see what? What you can see out here through the window. The blue sky. Have any of you ever been in a city where, like especially during the summer, you look up and the sky isn't blue, and I'm not talking because of clouds. I grew up in San Jose, California, now called Silicon Valley. Back in the late 60s and early 70s, every summer, we had ozone alerts. Because there was enough pollution, the sky, you'd look up and it would be brownish blue. If we drove up into the Santa Cruz Mountains, there would be a point where you'd go through and it'd kind of look a little foggy. And then you keep going up about another 20, 30, 40 feet, and you look down into the valley and you would just see brown. You wouldn't see buildings or cars or roads. It was like fog. It's like being in a plane looking down on clouds. But the cloud, pollution. LA was 10 times worse. Okay? But that's the kind of thing he's talking about. You have to get out of the city to see the blue sky. To breathe a prayer, full in the smile of the blue firmament. Who is more happy when, with heart's content, that is, finally, out of the bleh, who could, fatigued, sink into some pleasant lair of what? Wavy grass. Primrose Hill, Parliament Hill, on the heath, is this big open meadow area. And he's talking, being able to go there, plop down on the grass, and read a book of romance. A tale of gentle love and languishment. Returning home at evening, in other words, going back into the city, back into the pollution, with an ear catching the notes of Philomel, the nightingale, as it sings the song celebrating the end of the day, so to speak. And I watches this cloud sail on by, and he mourns the short time spent in the beauty of nature, and it's short like that cloud's career is short, even like the passage of an angel's tear, etc. Turn from there to the very next poem, the poem on page 1057. What time do I have that alarm set for? Wake up. 9:55. I think this is the exact kind of tale that the speaker in To One Who Has Been Long in City Pent is reading. Oh, what can ail thee, knight? La Belle of Sans Merci, the beautiful lady without mercy. Oh, what can ail thee, knight at arms, alone and palely loitering? The sedge is withered from the lake, and no bird sing. Why are you hanging out here at the edge of the lake when it's winter? The sedge, the growth, the vegetation, it's dead. And there aren't any birds singing. Why? They float south. What can hail thee, knight at arms, so haggard, worn down, tired, and woe begone? The squirrel's granary is full, and the harvest done. Again, it's winter. I see a lily on thy brow with anguish moist and fever dew, and on thy cheeks a fading rose fast withereth too. What's the lily seen on the knight's forehead? Notice, with anguish moist and fever dew. He's pale and sweating because of a fever. And then the knight speaks. The cheeks, a fading rose. It's like the blood is leaving the face. Something's happening to the knight while they speak. I met a lady in the meads, the meadows, full beautiful, a fairy's child. Her hair was long, her foot was light, her eyes were wild. That is, her eyes were intoxicating. It's like, wow. And he just fell in love. I made a garland for her head. He picked roses or flowers, put them on her head, bracelets too around her wrists, and a belt to go around her waist. She looked at me as she did love and made sweet moan. Not talking about sex, okay? She moaned for him. Why moan? Well, she might have used words, but she's a fairy child. Does she speak English? I set her on my pacing steed and nothing else all day long, for sidelong would she bend and sing a fairy song. There's a painting by one of the pre-Raphaelite poets, painters. I'm pretty sure it's Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and it's of the knight standing, looking at this woman who's seated on his horse, and she's bending down, whispering to him, and he's looking at her face. It's this passage. Sidelong would she bend and sing a fairy song. She found me roots of relish sweet and honey wild and manna dew. Notice all natural things. And sure in language strange, she said, I love thee true. Language strange, she said. She didn't say the language was strange. The language was strange because when she said it, strange means what? Unknown. He doesn't understand it, but he interprets it as what? I love thee true. But he doesn't know that's what she's saying. She took me to her elfin grot, her cave, and there she wept and sighed full sore, and there I shut her wild, wild eyes with kisses four. She has 2 eyes, he kisses them twice. She doesn't have 4 eyes. Probably wouldn't be interested if she did. And there she lulled me asleep, and there I dreamed, oh, woe betide. How does she lull him asleep? How does a parent lull a screaming baby to sleep? You sing and rock or cradle. Well, he's probably a little too big for her to hold in her arms. She sings him to sleep. And he dreams the latest dream I ever dreamed on the cold hillside. What is it he dreams? What he says next. Why does he dream this? Because of her words. I saw pale kings and princes too, pale warriors. Death pale were they all. They cried, La belle danseuse merci, hath thee in thrall. What's it mean to be in thrall?
Be enthralled, like.
To be enthralled means to, literally, it's to be enslaved. We think enthralled means like when a handsome Frenchman goes up to a beautiful woman and he says, enchanté. What does that mean? I'm enchanted. You've enchanted me. That sounds pretty cool. It means I am your thrall. Command me, okay? I saw their starved lips in the gloam, with horrid warning gaped wide. Gloam can mean darkness and dirt. Why are they gaped wide? The death grin. They're dead. And I awoke, and I found myself here on the cold hillside. See, when he fell asleep, it wasn't winter. How do we know? Because he made garlands for her. And this is why I sojourn here, alone and palely loitering. Why is he loitering? What's it mean to loiter? To wait. What's he waiting for? Her to come back? That's how some people read it. Though the sedge has withered from the lake and no birds sing. Or is he loitering to warn others? Beware the beautiful lady without mercy. Why? Because this will happen to you too. What's going to happen to him? Probably shortly. He's going to be like those other pale, dead kings and princes. He's dying. Thus the fever and the color draining from his face. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. I would hope to do very, very quickly Scarborough Fair by Anonymous. We'll do Scarborough Fair first thing Monday and then pick up with Passionate Shepherd to His Love. All right, have a good weekend.